the more you can own the customer lifecycle, the better. I will always recommend to do as much as you can to turn these big tech giants we rely on into just a traffic channel.
Hello, I'm your host, John Cavendish, and welcome to Season 3 of the Amazon Strategy Show, the show that's all strategy with no hacks, no silver bullets, and no magic pills, just real practical strategies for your Amazon business. Today, I'm joined by none other than Greg Elfrink from Empire Flippers. Greg's a friend of mine, and he's also based in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, where I was based until 2 months ago. Now I live in central Vietnam. So from the oil fields of Alaska, Greg has become one of the most influential speakers in the e-commerce industry, talking about strategies on how to maximize the exit of your e-commerce business, actually, and many different types of online business. Today, he joins us to share about where we are in the selling cycle and if it's a good time to buy or sell your Amazon business right now. So, Greg, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, John. I'm glad we were able to get on each other's podcasts. For everyone listening to this, if you want to hear John's wisdom, check out my podcast. But yeah, man, good to be here. Always a pleasure to chat with you.
Yeah, you too. And yeah, we did it 2 days ago. So if you're interested in the story of seller candy, you can go and check out the Empire Flippers podcast. I'm sure it's got a great optimized name, being that Greg is the marketing manager.
Well, Lauren takes care of that for me, so we'll be relying on her, I guess.
Awesome. So we are now in 2024, September. We had the huge boom when everyone was throwing down, getting rich. Then we had a lull. Whereabouts are we now between the highs of 2021 and the lows of 2023?
Yeah, so I think we're in a weird spot. So when it comes to buying or selling businesses, people can do it in a up cycle or a down cycle. The moment that they stop doing either is in moments of uncertainty, which for the last, I would say, 2 years, we've been in a pretty uncertain market as the COVID hangover ends, as the asset bubbles pop, as capital becomes more expensive, all this kind of stuff, right? Now, with that said, buyers are coming back. Buyers are buying businesses again. They're being much more conservative than they used to, which is good because they were honestly, like, my take on it, they were pretty stupid during the asset bubble. They were like doing crazy, dumb acquisition strategies and just like way overpaying. And like from a broker perspective and seller perspective, that's great. But from a buyer perspective, like it was a very bad strategy, right? So they're doing better. They're coming back. Due diligence is taking longer. So like back in the heyday, like we were selling $1 million business once per week. Like now that takes like 90 days to 120 days to really get that deal go through. And it's not terribly uncommon for a buyer to say, hey, I want 45 days of due diligence. And that turns into, an extra 2-3 months of due diligence on top of that. Mm. So much slower, but overall, I talk to a lot of sellers and they'll say like, oh, I'm going to wait until the next moment like that to sell. And I think this is a very bad thing to do and ultimately a foolish thing to do. I'm not saying that from like a bias of I want you to sell with me. Of course I do. But the reason why I say that is if you look at multiples back in 2019. So I've been in this industry for a little bit over 8 years now, brokering businesses. I've helped sell over 2,000 businesses, built a buyer network in the billions, right? So I've seen a lot of different business models and seen a lot of trends come and go. And in 2019, the multiples were extremely low compared to 2020 to 2022. Now we're in 2024, inching towards 2025, and we're in a quote unquote pretty down market compared to where we were. But if you look at the multiples today versus 2019, they're significantly better, like night and day difference. So it's still the second best time to sell. And the reason why I think it's foolish for a lot of sellers to wait is for that another asset bubble is because it probably won't happen. Because that in order for that to happen, you need like several black swan events all working together. Historically cheap capital, global wide pandemic that's forcing the function of everyone going to online purchases, a incredibly booming market, high employment rate, remote work, like all this stuff that needs to come together to recreate that scenario. So I say that again, not to get a seller to sell with me, but to say like, if that's your goal, like you might miss out on millions of dollars waiting for something that likely won't happen again. But yeah, so that's where we're at with the market. Still good. It's wounded, recovering. Deals are happening. It's just happening more rationally now versus what it used to do. So yeah.
Oh yeah. I saw some crazy deals. Some of our friends and some of our clients just got acquired at all cash, 3 to 5x. So yeah, crazy good deals for them. Well, that's great for them. So what were the kind of average multiples or the range of multiples in 2019 compared to now for specifically for Amazon e-com businesses, Amazon-centric e-com businesses?
Sure. So for your audience, if they're used to annual EBITDA multiples, like the 4x, just to be clear, EF, we always price things in monthly. So my mind thinks in monthly multiples. So don't be shocked when I say these numbers. Just divide them by 12. You get the annual EBITDA.
48,
Yeah.
50x, please.
Yeah. So we're the only ones who price it in that way. So I know someone grew up on the EF Kool-Aid if they're just saying like 48x versus like 4x. But yeah, during the height of it all, man, like we saw some deals literally go for 65x. I mean, we're talking about like a large SaaS company multiple that is being applied to a small Amazon FBA business. And this is what I mean about irrationality, right? Because there's a lot of flaws with the Amazon model. Like there's a lot of value in it too, but not that kind of value, at least not in the way that business was set up, right? So I think during the height, we were seeing between 45 and 55x was like decently common if you're above seven figures in terms of your valuation. Now, if you go lower than that, then you're really inching closer to like 37 to 42x around there. Nowadays, I would say smaller deals will probably be between 30 to 35x, and bigger deals with like so over $1 million valuation will probably be closer between 33 and 40x.
Okay, so you're talking in the old yearly multiple terms, 2.5 to 3x on the smaller end, I didn't catch the last number, but like 3.5x on the higher end, 3.5 to 4x on the
Yeah.
higher end.
And this, like, some people will look at it, oh God, that's so low. But like, if you look at all business brokering, so not just in the digital space, but like, you know, in your mom and pop shop in UK or America, like your local plumber or whatever, almost all SMBs get a valuation between 1 to 4x annual EBITDA. So this is what I mean again, like we're just back to normal basically. And it feels painful, but it's actually, as far as digital businesses go, way better than it was in 2019. Because in 2019, you'd be lucky to get above 2x because not a lot of people really trusted online businesses. Like when I first came on to EF in 2016, we were known as the 20x guys. You divide that by 12, is not even 2x because everything we like only sold for 20x. And we would have to tell sellers like, no, we will price it higher, but no one would buy higher because there's like no trust in digital assets. So now there's a parity with digital businesses like there's never been before with more brick and mortar businesses.
Yeah, I wonder if that number, the overall number, is brought down by the fact that a lot of the businesses, SMBs, are sold, are boomer businesses that they just want to get out of for 1x so they can get something out of their asset they built for the last 20 years.
So that's part of it. But there is more other mechanics going on there. So with a lot of the brick and mortar businesses, most of them honestly can't even be sold. So they're never even going to get to the 1.4x or like 0x, right? Like it's an impossible business to sell. Like my dad, he owns a multi-million-dollar real estate agency firm in Alaska. The asset value of that is $0 because he's the only producer. What are they buying? There's nothing to buy, So like a lot of businesses are that way. So most businesses just out of the gate don't even qualify to be able to be sold. So there's that. But a lot of the boomer stuff, like that is being talked about a lot, but there's a bit of overhype in that too. Like a lot of those businesses are being sold on the cheaper side because again, they ran out of energy to grow and maintain it. So a lot of them are declining. This is why you see like you say the no money down deal, which is totally possible. But the way they pitch it to newbies, because I have to break newbies' dreams every week who comes to me wanting to do a no money down offer. It's like, this is an extremely advanced strategy and extremely risky. Like you should only be doing a no money down strategy if you've done like some normal stuff, you have some like normal acquisitions, if you've done like, you have some capital, you know what you're doing. Like it's not newbie friendly, even though it's very sexy to a newbie to do stuff like that. But yeah, so that's kind of my take. Like the boomer stuff, yeah, it does drag down the multiple a little bit, but not as much as you might think. Like even they have to have a pretty quality business to be able to sell it if they're brick and mortar, because most of them just aren't sellable.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, we're not all going to get rich on car washes and laundromats, because otherwise there would be, the world would be inundated with just car washes and laundromats. It'd be like Vietnam and coffee shops.
I'm so glad you
Right.
brought this up. So I will not mention names, but there is a famous influencer in my world that bought a laundromat using no money down, like basically debt. And one of my broker friends, he ran through the numbers and like the person never said what, how much money she was making. She just like put the numbers up on there, hoping no one would look into them, right? But if you look into the numbers, like you're losing like $100 to $600 a month with the business, and it's a laundromat. You're not going to go 3x a laundromat, right? It's very local. Like there's things you can do to tweak it and like lower expenses, obviously, but it's not like a SaaS business or FBA business where you increase your conversion and double your customers for the same amount of money, right? It's just that's not the business model that can happen. So yeah, there's a bunch of disinformation. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I love the idea of those businesses. You know, you got a bunch of cash. Like, I love the idea of just buying, after being in digital business for so long and it being so intangible, they're being like, oh yeah, I mean, it's here. We just make ourselves available and then people will come.
You think that till the washers start breaking and you have to hire
Yeah.
a high-end $50 an hour technician to fix it.
Yeah. Or either you've got that, which is one problem, or you've got the problem of having a bunch of low-level employees, which is
Yes.
far worse problem to have, because then you
Yeah.
have to manage those people, which is my least favorite part of business if I was to do that.
Yeah. And in those businesses, you often don't even have the margin to hire a higher level employee, right? So you're always kind
Right.
of limited. You have a skilled cap of what you can hire for. Unless you own a bunch of them. At scale, everything changes, obviously. But just like
Yeah.
one-off shop, yeah, it's rougher than Twitter makes it out to seem.
Okay. All right. Just realized, gone way off topic. Let's go back on to online businesses. No more laundromats. Um,
We don't sell though, don't worry.
so we've been through, yes, it's possible to sell now. Multiples are better than they were in 2019, which is awesome. What about buying businesses? Like who is, if you can share, I mean, who's your kind of MO for a buyer right now and what's their goal with buying?
Yeah. So I would say our average buyer today is much like our average seller, just a little bit further along on the road. So at EF, we've always had a smattering of different types of buyers, like the people want to become digital nomads, people want to buy side hustles, and then other entrepreneurs looking to grow through acquisition. And during 2020 to 2022, we got a new segment, which was private equity, started really coming in hard. And they're still there. Like we just sold a close to a $13 million business to a multinational corporation. They were a strategic buyer, backed with PE funding, all that kind of stuff. So they're still there. But I would say the average buyer today is much more of an entrepreneur in the trenches. So they don't have like you deal with two different unrealistic things in my marketplace with two different buyers. You have the newbie who thinks like, oh, Amazon FBA, it's passive. I only have to work an hour a week, which yeah, that's true if you like tweak it out and you like systemize and stuff. But like there's going to be weeks where you're working 80 hours a week because something goes wrong. Right? Like that's his business, right? So they come in with a bit of the passive income dream. And then the private equity people, they often come in with the spreadsheet dream, which is like spreadsheet goes up and just no connection to the reality of business. Like your spreadsheet isn't taking into account COVID or like a COVID hangover or like your marketing sucks, your operation sucks, everything is confused and is a mess. Like where's that in your spreadsheet? Like, so they often like miss out on reality with the business, which I think the aggregators suffered from. But the actual entrepreneurs buying from us, they are obviously much more attuned to how business really works because they're in the trenches. Now, they often don't give as sweet of a deal to the seller as, say, like the private equity does. They're not as bad to deal with the newbies. I shouldn't say bad, but there's not less handholding because they know what to do, right? Versus the newbies, they have a lot more anxiety because it's a pretty big purchase. So I would say any business over $1 million, between like $1 to $3 million, like private equity might still be in there, but often it'll be just a higher level entrepreneur further along on the path. And their goal is to grow through acquisition because, like buying a business is the most legitimate shortcut to wealth in my view, and they totally get it.
Oh yeah, so can you expand on that a little bit? The benefit, the reasons for buying instead of starting your own business.
No, there's so many, but I'll share a funny story to kind of highlight what I mean. To be clear to your audience, I do not recommend anyone to do this. This is a very risky thing I'm going to say, but it happened on our marketplace. And I think it's very funny. And it shows the difference between starting a business and buying a business, I think, quite clearly. So we had this guy, he bought a very small business from us. I think it was like $100,000. So it was a content site, monetized through affiliate display ads. So he buys this business. It was quite competitive to get. There's a lot of people who wanted to buy it. It was a very quality site. And after he buys it, we haven't even started migrating it yet to him. So we open up a migration ticket to hand over the business to him from the seller, right? He asks our team, like, hey, was there a lot of other people looking to buy this? And we said, yeah, it was quite competitive. He said, well, you want to reach out to any of those guys? I'll sell it to them right now, $115,000, no questions asked. So they were like, okay. So he reached out to all the buyers who wanted it. One of them, sure enough, did buy it for $115,000. That guy owned the business for an hour and made 15 grand. Like he didn't even have the asset. It wasn't like he basically arbitraged it, right?
Yeah, that's
Now,
great.
if you start a business, you're at zero traffic, zero money. You're not going to make 15 grand an hour. It's impossible. You have no history. There's no way to sell it. Like the youngest, like that I recommend to sell a business is 18 months. And even that is pretty short. There's not enough history. But when you buy a business, that guy only owned it for an hour, but he owned 5 years of history within that hour. It's not like that history goes away because there's a new owner. It's still all there, right? So that's like one of the really powerful things of buying a business. And what I mean by a shortcut, like that guy literally profited off 5 years of work that he only had to spend an hour and show he had the money to acquire that hour of ownership, right? So that's like the beauty of buying a business. And again, for obvious reasons, do not recommend doing this. Like if that's your main strategy, there's a very high chance it won't work out. Worked out for him, but that shows you the power of buying a business versus building.
Interesting. Just to dive into that a little bit, did that make him any money after he
Yeah,
paid?
yeah,
Did he pay you the 15% on that as well? And did he actually make anything in the end?
yeah. I think he came out at like 6 or 7 grand in profit after our commission, something like that.
Yeah, which is like 2 months of what the business was making, I guess.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah, interesting strategy. I don't know if I would personally flip something for like, 6% when if I'd spent all this time negotiating and finding and like, is it worth getting out of bed for that much money?
So if you're a newbie buyer, and like I said, I don't recommend doing this. I don't remember if he was a newbie buyer or not. I think he might be because of the price. But deals like this actually happen all the time with M&A junkies. Like they view businesses as their product, not as their asset. So they view themselves as a store of businesses, right? So I know of people who will go and buy a $5-6 million deal, and it's not like an hour thing like this guy, but it's basically the same concept. They have a network of higher buyers. They got this deal at a low multiple because of negotiation. There's often like like a great example. So I was talking to a guy, he has a 8-figure marketing agency. I was telling him about an agency roll-up idea, where you put white label SEO services together, and he immediately scoffed at it. He's like, white label? No, they want in-house talent. Like, who's they? And there's this bigger private equity that goes and buys big agencies, and they refuse to buy white label because they view it as low quality. And like, well, their view is actually our opportunity. Because if you went and bought those white label stuff that they snuff their nose at, well, guess what you get to do? You're the owner. You just make it not a white label. Easy. Done.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you use the white label to go acquire other agencies that have a better retail face. And then you package it up and you go to that agency. Hey, I heard you buy a really great agency. Like, yeah, but no white label. Oh, don't worry. We're not white label. And they're like, great. And they'll go pay you like 3-5x of a bigger multiple. No, probably not 5x, but 2 to 3x bigger than what you bought it for. And that could all be done with like very minimal changes over a period of 6 to 12 months. So this is what I mean. Like deals like this happen all the time. Another example would be, I know a buyer, he, not with us, but a different business. He bought a business. I think it was like 3 mil, and he got it for like 2.5. The fair market would probably be 3 mil. And he went to the leadership of the team, sold them equity as if it is at 3 million, because that's what it was going to be like after 2 months. And he was able to bring down that, his own cash intake pretty quickly. And then within 6-7 months, he again sold it to a bigger private equity. So stuff like this happens all the time in the M&A world. But again, these are advanced things, and I don't recommend someone starting to try to do this.
No, I love it. I mean, actually, I have another story. My friend did the same thing. Some of my friends who sold FBA, they bought another FBA business at like 3x, thinking they were going to grow it loads off Amazon. They grew it significantly off Amazon. Well, they went from 10% sales to 30% sales off Amazon, and the rest of the revenue kind of stayed the same. So it went up a little bit. But during that time, the market went from 3x to 5x for that type of business. So they walked away with, $3 million. So you couldn't do that if you were starting from zero within 2 years, 2.5 years, as you said.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And here's another crazy thing that a lot of people don't think about. So if you're a newbie buyer, I do recommend you like buy a side hustle first and get used to the process. Use a broker if you've never done it. It doesn't have to be me, but like a broker can be quite helpful in what is often a confusing journey. but buy something small and be okay if you might lose that money. But once you get like your feet like wet and you get a taste of it, like
Uh,
one of the least risky ways to go buy a business is to buy a bigger business. Like instead of doing a 200K business, try to buy a $3 million business, because the bigger you get, the less fragility is in the business and the more leverage you have in multiple different ways. So a lot of people are afraid to go big, but often in my view, when buying a business, the risk is in the smaller businesses.
mm. So actually, I guess the question I would have if you said that to me, and if I was sitting in the buyer's shoes now, would be, so assume I'm going to buy that business, that's definitely going to be debt, I guess an SBA loan or something else. Would that be personally guaranteed in your experience?
So all SBAs are personal guarantee.
Okay.
Yeah. So one thing I'll say on personal guarantee is, again, I wouldn't do it unless you are completely comfortable with losing everything. Never invest in anything, 'cause anything could happen. Business is a risky game to play, high reward, but high risk, right? Now, a good way to look at a personal guarantee is like, if you think that is risky, you should probably not be an entrepreneur. Like you're
Well, I
like
mean,
what you're
I think I think it's risky. I wouldn't take on a personal guarantee that would wipe me
But
out. You know.
you are doing a personal guarantee right now. You're putting in your own money into seller candy. At any moment, a train wreck can happen and destroy seller candy. Now, the reason why you view it differently is because you view the risk of it differently. It's the same risk. Like if you are the only difference is you don't have the leverage at the bank. And
Yeah, I mean
most of the time,
that's where I see that. Sorry to interrupt, but that's
right,
why I see the risk differently because
right,
I'm only risking equity value, not not whatever I have in the back.
sure.
You know, if I've got seven figures in the back and I risk all of that, then that means that it could completely wipe you out.
Sure, but that the bank doesn't want to wipe you out. Like they're
Mm,
not like they don't want to go and destroy a good creditor for no reason. That's like the last thing they want to do. Often, if you have issues, that you can just renegotiate with them, and they
mm,
will work with you. Like I have a friend, he has an SBA loan right now. He bought a business and it went really bad, like extremely bad. And he was able to renegotiate his terms. Like, does that happen all the time? No. But if you're going to use any kind of debt or any kind of loan, then you got to be okay with that kind of stuff. Like personal guarantee is how SBA does it, but like if you do go with private equity, which has way harsher terms than SBA minus the personal guarantee, so like
mm.
you're giving up significant portions of the business that. So
Yeah.
again, it comes down to risk. I personally don't like if you are confident in the business and you have skills, you have a track record of success, then I wouldn't let a personal guarantee stop you. Like I have another friend, he's used the SBA loan, I think 3 times, and he now has a portfolio over $10 million with like less than 30% debt on it. So, and he was able to leverage that into those bigger businesses, right?
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah. Again, I wouldn't recommend it for someone starting out, but if you have the skill set, the track record, all that kind of stuff, I wouldn't let personal guarantees scare you away.
Yeah, that's cool. I think it'd be really cool to get him on your podcast and share his story sometime because I feel like that's an inspirational story.
So here's a guy you'll have to Google it because I don't remember the episode, but there's this guy Brett Beshore. He runs Permanent Equity. I think it's called Permanent Equity. Well, anyways, Brent he started his business by using the SBA loan to buy. I think it was a marketing agency of some kind, and he had a personal guarantee on that too, and like it did not start off easy for him. Like he talks about that story and is in his book as well, which I highly recommend. But now he runs like one of the biggest private equity firms in America. Like, I mean, yeah, you could like if you have 2, 3 houses, yes, you can lose it, but like if you're okay with that risk, you can also gain what Brett has, right? I'm not saying it's easy, but that's the different levels of risk. Like he used that personal guarantee leverage to build a $100 million plus fund over a period, I think like 10 years, so like relatively quickly.
Yeah, that's very cool. Love it. Yeah, so go check out that episode with Greg. All right, should we move on to the next bit of the episode, Greg? So this is called the controversial take. So, what's your most debatable or potentially controversial opinion related to Amazon or the e-commerce industry or the buy-sell business arena, if you want?
Well, probably personal guarantees because I don't. I'm not as afraid of them as other people. I have a different mindset on that, having seen so many deals, right? But outside of that, with Amazon FBA in particular, something I say that does kind of annoy a lot of my FBA friends is, I tell them that run a business with too much key man risk. And what I mean by that is that you rely too much on one single point of failure. In their case, it's Amazon. I have friends who are, in the content space, and their key man risk is Google, like the Google algorithm, right? And it makes your business such a slave to one big tech giant when you want to diversify that risk. So I was talking to another Amazon FBA guy, influencer in the space, just, back and forth on Facebook or whatever. Cool dude. He's been on the podcast too. Really nice guy, very smart. But he told me he said like what should FBA people do? And I said they should diversify into DTC commerce, try to expand off the platform, and really be focusing Amazon as just an acquisition channel. Like, don't think of your business as an Amazon FBA business. Think of yourself as an e-commerce brand that's more than just Amazon. And he commented back like, well, a lot of people can't do that. And said like, I agree, because Amazon does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So your product might not be able to work out in the wild as easily or as good as it does on Amazon. But if that's your case, then that means you are inherently running a weaker business. And that's a risky place to be. So I will always recommend to do as much as you can to turn these like big tech giants we rely on into just a traffic channel. The more you can own the customer lifecycle, the better. And almost everyone agrees with me. I wouldn't say that's controversial, but the way I'd say, like, talk about Amazon being such a massive risk is usually the controversial take. But I think we all see that, right? Like Bezos announced those new new fees. I keep calling them fines. Increase it. And if you are 100% Amazon FBA, what are you going to do? You're going to shut down your business? Like, you're going to pay you're going to pay the fine, the fee.
Yeah.
So
he's going to take it from you.
Yeah, like there's like nothing you can do versus if you have a DTC branch of your business, right? If you're selling, I think I talked about it on our podcast. If you are selling a piece of shoes, like shoes on a Facebook ad, right? They click it, they go to your Shopify store, they don't buy for whatever reason. It's in their mind. They want these shoes. They forget your brand because who want it? Like we forget, like I forget what I did yesterday. They're not going to remember our brand unless we made a real crazy impact. So they go to Amazon because Amazon's the Google of consumer search, right? And they find your shoes because you're on Amazon, you're running ads, but only for your brand. So you're actually not spending that much money on Amazon in comparison to other channels. Like those are the ones, and now they buy your shoes. So like that's how Amazon should be used in my view, because Amazon takes all those customers versus if you have the DTC store, all those customers belong in your ecosystem now, which is far more powerful, way more valuable when you go to sell too.
Cool. I love that take. And I totally agree with you. It all depends, of course, for the listener on the product they have, whether it's Amazon, it is Amazon centric and whether it can be taken off Amazon. But if you don't want to sell and you don't want to expand more on Amazon, I mean, D2C is the place to go. And there's many, many resources out there for that, as well as the Amazon resources.
Yeah, the more you can do that, the better in my view.
Love it. So, Greg, thanks so much for being on the show. How should people follow you online if they want to hear more?
Yeah, I mean, you can just email me, greg@empireflippers.com. If you wanted to talk to me personally, I'm usually pretty responsive on there. Give me a couple days because I do get spammed a lot. A lot of guest post linkers wanting so many guest post links. But outside of that, go to empireflippers.com. I run a YouTube channel, just youtube.com/empireflippers as well. Any of those, you can reach out, leave a comment, and happy to answer any questions if I can help or not.
Awesome. Thank you. And so thanks so much for being on the show, Greg. If you like this show and if you're watching, please go and like, follow, and rate us if you're on a different platform. So if you're watching on YouTube, thumbs up or thumbs down. And if you're watching on Spotify, just give us 5 stars or 4 stars or whatever
Definitely
stars you want to give.
5 stars.
Definitely
Support
5 stars. Except if you're on Amazon, you're asking for 5 stars, they will downvote you. Amazon will put you like crazy. So I said that and I'm like, we're going to get wiped out. But no, thanks so much. And tune in for the next episode. Thanks for being here, Greg.
Thanks for having me, Matt.